Good morning, friends and family. Thank you for being here. We're here to celebrate and remember Bernard Etheart. Before we get started, I want to commend all of you. I was under the impression that this was going to have a lot of Haitians and that we wouldn't be started until about noon, but you guys shocked everybody and showed up, and to celebrate this wonderful life and to remember and to encourage the family. That's why we come here today. Could we go to the Lord in prayer? Lord, on this day we ask you to be true to your promise. The promise that you would come close to the brokenhearted, that when people are mourning, you would be there to comfort them. And Lord, that you would bring the encouragement of life in Jesus to each one of us. So we ask this morning that you would be here like you promised, that you would bring joy to our hearts in the midst of a very difficult time, and that you would help us to remember and celebrate the wonderful life of Bernard Etheart. Lord, you are faithful and you are good, and we ask that your goodness would shine to us and through us. In the most wonderful name of the Lord Jesus Christ, amen. First of all in French and then Alain. So here we
Bonjour, je suis Danielle Rodriguez-Gaspard, une amie de longue date des familles Etheart et Alexis. Je remercie vivement Elsie, Pascal et Bernard pour cet honneur de lire votre beau texte de la biographie de Monsieur Emmanuel Bernard Etheart, sociologue. Une vie immense. Bernard Etheart est né à Port-au-Prince le 4 juin 1937. Il est le premier enfant du couple Emmanuel Etheart et Alice Montré. Il sera suivi d'une sœur, Marie-Claude, et de frères, Régis. Très tôt, ses parents se rendent compte de son intelligence et de son caractère entier. Il n'est pas facile de le forcer à faire quelque chose qui ne lui plaît pas. Il fréquente le petit séminaire pour les martiales et il fera toutes ses études, de la 11e à la philo. Ses études classiques terminées, il fréquente l'école de pharmacie, n'ayant pas beaucoup de choix en Haïti. Aussitôt obtenu son diplôme de pharmacien, il a une bourse d'études pour l'Allemagne afin de se spécialiser. Il restera en Allemagne de 1960 à 1972, mais pas en pharmacie. Il aura vite fait de changer et de se lancer dans les études de sociologie. Malheureusement, il ne pourra pas faire la sociologie rurale comme il avait toujours rêvé. Cette spécialisation n'existait pas encore en Allemagne au moment où il faisait ses études. Mais aussitôt de retour en Haïti, son travail sur le terrain fait de lui un sociologue spécialiste de sociologie rurale. Lors de son séjour en République fédérale d'Allemagne, Bernard Etheart organisa de nombreuses rencontres d'étudiants. C'est là qu'il rencontra celle qui allait devenir son épouse, Elsie Colomb, qui étudiait alors le journalisme. Le couple se maria le 21 mai 1965 et eut 2 enfants, Bernard Etheart Jr. en 1965 et Pascal Etheart en 1971. Bernard et Elsie retournèrent en Haïti en 1972. Bernard fut d'abord professeur de géographie, puis de 1976 à 1998, professeur de sociologie rurale à la faculté des sciences humaines. Il a été consultant auprès de la Fondation interaméricaine de 1976 à 1995. Directeur du projet Croix-Fer, commune de Beladea, pour la CHADEV, qui est la Comité haïtien de développement, de 1976 à 1987. Un aspect principal de ce projet fut de construire un canal d'irrigation pour permettre aux fermiers de cette région d'augmenter leur production. En fin de l'année 1980, la famille Etheart fut secouée par l'arrestation en l'envoi en exil d'Elsie parmi de nombreux autres journalistes par le gouvernement qui voulait faire taire la presse indépendante. Elsie s'installa à Miami et commença à travailler avec la communauté haïtienne, alors en pleine croissance. Peu après, Bernard Junior et Pascal rejoignirent Elsie à Miami. Bernard Père commença alors à faire le va-et-vient entre Haïti et Miami afin d'être en mesure de continuer à diriger le projet de Croix-Fer et pour poursuivre d'autres projets de développement en Haïti. De 1986 à 2014, Haïti se débat dans un processus de transition sans fin et de démocratisation avec des hauts et des bas. La Constitution de 1987, qui est porteuse des revendications du peuple haïtien depuis le départ de la dictature des Duvaliers, a pris en compte, entre autres, la réforme agraire. Ce qui a conduit en 1995 à la mise en place de l'Institut national de réforme agraire, INARA, par le président Jean-Bertrand Aristide, lequel choisit Bernard comme premier directeur de cette nouvelle institution. Il passera 18 ans à sa tête, de 1995 à 2013. Depuis 2005, Bernard commence à publier des articles dans l'hebdomadaire Haïti en marche. Il sortira jusqu'à sa mort le 18 janvier 2024. La plupart sont les thématiques foncières, mais aussi sur les changements climatiques. Beaucoup de ces articles furent compilés pour former un livre intitulé La problématique foncière en Haïti, qui fut publié en 2014. Bernard fut aussi président de Fondilac, Fondation haïtienne pour le développement intégral latino-américain et caribéen, dont l'objectif principal est de contribuer au développement d'Haïti dans le contexte caribéen et latino-américain. C'est tout ça que Bernard a dû abandonner en restant à Miami. Arrivé pour ce dernier séjour en Floride le 20 novembre 2019 pour un séjour de 2 à 3 semaines. Il n'a jamais revu Haïti depuis lors. La situation sécuritaire du pays devenant de plus en plus difficile. Ce qui lui a fait dire à Bernard, son fils, 2 jours avant sa mort, « Je ne m'habituerai jamais à vivre ici. Mais je réalise qu'il n'y a pas moyen pour moi de retourner vivre en Haïti. » C'est juste un petit coup d'œil sur la vie de ce fils d'Haïti. Aujourd'hui, nous célébrons la vie de ce fils, mari, père, et grand-père. Il laisse derrière lui son épouse, Elsie, ses enfants, Bernard Junior et sa femme Sandra Etheart, et Pascal et son époux, Larry Tadeo, ses petits-enfants, Thomas et Bethany Tadeo, son frère Régis et femme Régine Etheart, son neveu Thibault et femme Maud Etheart, et ses nièces Nathalie Etheart et Amelia Etheart. Il a bien vécu, me direz-vous, mais il n'aura pas vu ce pourquoi il a travaillé toute sa vie. Ce changement que tous ceux qui aiment Haïti auraient voulu voir se produire, et qui tarde tellement à arriver. Mais quand bien même, ses contributions sont immenses. Son influence est indiscutable. Et ses efforts pour une meilleure Haïti et un meilleur monde difficile à mesurer. Bon travail, Bernard. Tu as fait ton possible pour que les choses changent. Tous ceux qui t'ont connu peuvent en témoigner. Tu peux maintenant reposer en paix et en toute fierté.
Bonjour tout le monde. Hello everybody. Good morning. Thank you all for being here. My name is Alain Joulon. I'm the cousin of the family. I get to translate what Danielle just read to you. Bernard, you gave me the smaller version. I can barely read this, but I'm going to do my best. So, the life of Bernard Etheart was born in Port-au-Prince, Haiti on June 4th, 1937. He was the firstborn child of Emmanuel Etheart et Alice Montry. He grew up with a sister, Marie-Claude, and a brother, Régis. Régis is not with us today, but his son, Thibault, is there from Canada. Early on, his parents realized that he was quite smart, but strong-headed. That until his last days. Yes, he was very strong-headed. He went to grade school at Petit Séminaire Collège Semencial in Port-au-Prince from 2nd to 12th grade. After high school, he studied pharmacy, given that choices for higher education opportunities were limited in Haiti. Yeah, but that's what your parents wanted you to do. Bernard earned a scholarship to further his studies in Germany, where he lived from 1960 to 1972. However, he did not continue his studies in pharmacy. Instead, he chose to study sociology. He could not follow his dream of studying rural sociology because that specialization did not yet exist in Germany. Nevertheless, once back in Haiti, he became a specialist in rural sociology through his field work. While leading student groups during the early 1960s in Munich, Germany, Bernard met his future wife, Elsie Colomb, who was also there to study and escape the lack of freedom in Haiti. The couple married in May 21st of 1965 and shared 2 children, Bernard Etheart Jr. and Véronique Pascal Etheart Tadeo. Bernard and Elsie relocated to Haiti to raise their family in 1972. Bernard first worked as a high school geography teacher. Later, from 1976 to 1988, he taught rural sociology at the Faculté des Sciences Humaines in Port-au-Prince. From 1976 to 1995, he was a consultant for the Inter-American Foundation. He also directed the Coiffeur Project in Belader. Also worked for Shadev from 1976 to 1987. In that role, he oversaw the building of an irrigation canal designed to bring water to local crops, which permitted farmers to become self-sufficient. In the late 1980s, the family was rattled when Elsie, who had become a journalist in Germany, was arrested and exiled during the crackdown on the free press in Haiti. Elsie eventually settled in Miami and started working with the growing Haitian community there. Bernard Jr. and Pascal later moved to Miami to be with her. Meanwhile, Bernard Sr. remained in Haiti, traveled back and forth to the States. He chose his path due to his commitment to the Quad Affair project he was overseeing. He also, due to his everlasting pursuit for change in Haiti. From 1986 to 2014, Haiti tried to transition to democracy. The Haitian Constitution of 1987, including provisions for agrarian reform. The Institute for Agrarian Reform, INARA, was created for this purpose. The president at the time chose Bernard as the first director of INARA, where he spent 18 years in that role from 1995 to 2013. Beginning in 2005, Bernard published articles in the weekly newspaper, Haïti en Marche, regularly. Most of the articles were about land reform, but some also focused on climate change. He was the only one, probably. Many of these articles were compiled into a book, La Problématique Foncière en Haïti, which Bernard published in 2014. Bernard also presided over FONDILAC, Fondation Haïtienne pour le Développement Intégral Latino-Américain et Caribéen. The main objective of this nonprofit organization is to contribute to Haiti's development in the Latin American and Caribbean context. Bernard had to leave these projects behind to remain in Miami long term. He has traveled to Miami on November 20th, 2019 for a short stay during COVID. To his disappointment, he was never able to return. And later, because of the worsening security concerns in Haiti. Today we celebrate his devoted son, brother, husband, father, and grandfather. Bernard is survived by his wife Elsie, his children, Bernard, Sandra, Etheart, Pascal, Tadeo, his grandchildren, Thomas and Bethany, his brother Regis, Regine Etheart, his nephew Thibault, Maud Etheart, and his nieces, Natalie and Amelia. Bernard was also a loyal and committed son of Haiti. In spite of his long life pursuit for change in his beloved country, he didn't get to see the change. He sought more than anything. Nevertheless, his contributions were immense. His influence was undisputable, and his quest for a better Haiti, better world, were unmeasurable. Great job, Bernard. You can now rest and be proud of everything that you've accomplished. Thank you.
soin de la caillou, me volant plume, Anna Maria, qui coto sorti, yes, soin de la caillou, me volant plume, why, Monsieur Mano douce, why, Monsieur Porky douce, why, Monsieur Leslie douce, why, Monsieur Mano associé, ma qu'à tenter, c'est pour le caboulé, bingo, Wendy bingo, oh, c'est pour le caboulé, c'est pour le cap marché, bingo, les gars, bingo, Wendy bingo, numéro 78, 99, 0. Bengo, les gars, bengo, les gars, bengo, les gars, bengo, les gars, bengo, bengo, Wendy bengo, biggy bang, bang, bengo, biggy bang, bang, bengo, bang, bang, bengo, biggy bang, Wendy bengo, bang, bang, bengo, biggy bang, Wendy bengo. Si vous mariez pour nous divorcer, raison pour nous marier. Si vous mariez pour nous prendre ce clos, raison pour nous marier. Si vous mariez pour femme, moi un peu bloqué, raison pour nous marier. Moi pas raison pour nous marier, raison pour nous marier. Moi j'en raison pour qui nous marier, raison pour nous marier. Moi pas raison pour nous marier, raison pour nous marier. J'en raison pour qui nous marier, raison pour nous marier. Moi pas raison, moi pas j'en raison pour qui ça nous marier. Après pour nous divorcer, moi pas raison, moi pas j'en raison pour qui nous marier. Après pour nous divorcer.
I'd like to welcome Robert McGuire, share some words. You can come on up and as this song is coming to.
Si vous mariez pour pas moi dormir dehors, moi pas raison pour nous marier, raison pour nous marier. J'en raison pour qui nous marier, raison pour nous marier. À Bali, c'est l'oreiller, c'est l'antipique. Nous-mêmes qu'à côté nouillé, c'est l'antipique. À Mondo, c'est l'oreiller, c'est l'antipique. Nous-mêmes qu'à danser, mais qui côté nouillé, c'est l'antipique. On bague l'argent, oh là là. On bague doudou, oh là là. On bague danser, oh là là. On bague l'argent, oh là là. Oh là oh là oh là là. Oh là là, oh là oh là là. Oh là là. Sentiment fini, sentiment fini, sentiment fini, sentiment fini, sentiment fini, sentiment fini. Collé, 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 t'es collé, collé, t'es collé, collé, t'es collé, collé, t'es collé. Vini, 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 sentiment fini, vini, vini, sentiment fini. Ça va me déranger, sentiment fini, vini, vini, sentiment fini, sentiment fini, sentiment fini, sentiment fini. Eh bien, vite, tu es le tout non. Sentiment fini, sentiment fini, sentiment fini, sentiment fini, sentiment fini.
Bonjour tout le monde. So that was one of Bernard's favorite songs. Ensemble, Ensemble by DP Express. And as typical of a good compas melody, it was 7 minutes long. On air. Oh, let's try that again. On air. Much better, much better. My name is Bob McGuire. Oops, stay there, boy. Oh, okay. It was my pleasure to fly in yesterday from Washington, D.C., where I live, so I could be here today to join all of you to remember our friend, Bernard Etheart. Elsie had asked me if I could spend a few minutes to talk about Bernard and his work in Haiti. And I'm honored to do that. And you may want to know, how the heck am I qualified to do that? Well, I will take this occasion to share some stories with you of Bernard and I as we work together to aspire to achieve development goals in Haiti over the course of about 20 years. We traveled the country together, and I used to think of us as something like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I'm not sure who was who, but... So I first came to know Bernard actually in my first visit to Haiti in 1974. I went there as a grad student for a summer program in Haiti sponsored by an organization named SHIS, which had been founded by a man named Hubert Duranceret. And at that time, Bernard, having recently returned to Haiti, was affiliated in some respect with SHIS. And I really didn't get to know him, but I remember seeing him in the presentations and thinking to myself, you know, this fella, is he really Haitian or is he Mexican? Because, you know, Bernard had that goatee and he had his longer hair at the time. So we didn't get to know each other well then, but we got to know each other much better when I returned to Haiti in 1978 as a consultant for the Inter-American Foundation. I met Bernard, I met Elsie, and they handed me the keys to a Kawasaki 125 dirt bike. And 6 weeks later, I showed back up at their door, and I said it was a wonderful research trip. Thank you so much for the motorcycle, and I came back. Little did I know that I would thereafter see Bernard very frequently, because in 1979, I was hired by the Inter-American Foundation to be its representative in Haiti. And Bernard had been advising the Inter-American Foundation on how to establish its program supporting community groups in Haiti to improve their social and economic conditions within their community. So Bernard and I worked together very carefully and closely in that regard. And he, of course, as the director of ESEF, which was the Institute for Consultation, Education, and Formation. And Bernard had a team of a few people. It changed over time. But initially, one of the key people working with Bernard was an American priest named Père Roland Lamy. And some of you may know of Père Lamy, who was instrumental in Bernard's life for many years. But other members of his team included Peter Greff, Ronel Serran, and Nouriac Datis. Nouriac Datis passed away recently in Houston, Texas. Bernard and I would travel throughout Haiti, visiting communities and groups. We went to almost every corner of the country. I can recall for you, for example, our visits to Pilat, where we worked with the legendary Holy Cross priest, Père Pollux Bayas. We spent a lot of time in the north because under the auspices of Père Yvan Joseph and his organization IDEA, a lot of community groups were rising throughout the north, and Bernard and I were always anxious to visit them see what they were doing, learn what they were doing, and see if we could somehow mobilize some resources from the Inter-American Foundation to support their work. I have many, many memories of barreling across the roads of Haiti with Bernard. Of course, he was always the driver, and I was the navigator. Now, I say navigator because, you know, some of those back roads we traveled, you really did need navigation. And I can recall, for example, on our way to Bombardopolis one time, trying to climb the hills of Montchien, how I actually had to get out of the vehicle and walk in front of it and kind of guide Bernard this way and that way so that he wouldn't fall into ruts that could break the axles of the car. We'd be driving in better conditions on the paved roads with the windows down, the breeze washing through us, and Bernard smoking his comme il faut constantly. And we had some interesting passengers in our vehicle from time to time. I know he's not here today. I heard from him in Haiti, but one of them was an agronomist named Marc-Antoine Noël. And it's through our driving one time that I learned that Marc-Antoine Noël was a big fan of the ranchero music of Mexico. He would serenade us nonstop with rancheros. So Bernard, those of you who know Bernard know he was a very hard-headed driver as well as a hard-headed person, which has been already mentioned, which I can attest to. But part of that hard-headed driving was that Bernard knew how to ford rivers. He never lost a vehicle in a river that I know of, and he always made it from one side to the next. I recall, for example, one time we had spent many, many hours in the northwest of Haiti driving, and we were trying to get to Port-de-Paix to spend the night. And we got to La Trois-Rivières, and it had been raining in the inside that day. And it was dark. We were tired. We could see the town across the river. We just wanted to get there. So Bernard, it was a little risky at this point. He plunged into the river with the vehicle. And, you know, these were diesel vehicles. He loved driving his Isuzu Trooper. And they had a little more resilience to water than the gas-powered vehicles. But I got a little worried when the river went over the hood of the car, darkened the windshield, darkened the lights, and we couldn't see anything. And we just kept moving forward. Bernard determined to get across that river. We did, thank God. We got across the river. But this was some idea of Bernard and his driving. But we also traveled by horseback from time to time to reach some of the more isolated areas in Haiti. I recall, for example, one time Bernard and I were given 2 Creole ponies to ride and get up to a place called Bellefontaine, up in the Massif La Selle, way behind Fercy. And I was, you know, I'm a tall guy, so that poor Creole pony, my feet were almost dragging on the ground. But Bernard and I made it up there. We rode those horses, or those little ponies, for about 7-8 hours and got up there and visited the Mouvement Paysan Bellefontaine, which we ended up supporting in its work. Our trips were often exhausting, long, exhausting, and I'll share one story with you when we were going to Ranquite to visit with the Mouvement Paysan Ranquite. And we had been on the road all day. We got to Ranquite about 4 or 5 in the afternoon. We met our hosts and we went to sleep with meetings to begin in the morning. So I got up to begin the meetings and Bernard was nowhere to be seen. Well, finally, at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 20 hours after we got there, he emerged from where he was sleeping. He had just waken up. He had slept for 20 straight hours. I was starting to get very worried. But he got up and he was fine, joined the meeting, and off we went. Bernard and I practiced something we called tough love when we did our work. We didn't want to wear our hearts on our sleeves. We were not engaged in charity. We were engaged in trying to support people to do serious things and accomplish serious goals. And in that regard, sometimes we had to play good cop, bad cop in some of our visits. I'll tell you about one of them. Bernard took me to Coiffer to visit the Shadev irrigation project, which he was directing. And he told me along the way that he felt that the people in Shadev, the people working in the project, were getting a little slack in the way they were approaching this. They were slacking off a bit. So he asked me if I could forget about the fact that I know Creole, that I could pretend for his purposes that I was a high official of the World Bank and that I was coming there to inspect the canal. So I did. I just walked along like a dumb World Bank guy, and that's real. Bernard, you know, he sent the message out, and he was translating for me, and I was yes, and so on. But he got the message across to his people at Coiffer, and he used me as the foil to do it, and I was very happy to do that. So I got to know Bernard through all these years, but I'll tell you when I really got to know Bernard. I got to know Bernard in the end of November 1980. I had planned a visit to Haiti, and in the midst of my planning and in the midst of my travel, there was a crackdown in Haiti. Ronald Reagan had been elected president. The Haitian Spring, or human rights opening, had ended, and people were being arrested. So, you know, this is 1980. There's no internet. There's no WhatsApp. It's hard to get information across at that time. So I went on and carried on with my trip, and I arrived at the airport, and Bernard had told me he would be there to visit, to greet me and take me to the hotel. So I remember getting off the plane, and in those days in the Port-au-Prince airport there was a visiting gallery. Some of you may remember that, and people would wave at you, and you'd walk across the tarmac and so on. And I saw Bernard waving. And then I got through the Customs and Immigration, and who was meeting me? What, Bernard Jr. I don't know if you remember this. But he said, come with me. Dad wants to see you. Come upstairs. So we went upstairs to the observation deck. And I said to Bernard, what's happening? And he turned to me and he looked and he said, they took Elsie. And Bernard was there at the airport with Pascal and Bernard Jr., and they were waiting to see if they could see Elsie as she walked across the tarmac to the airplane that ended up taking you, I think, to the Netherlands Antilles, at least initially. So I remember this moment following seeing Elsie leave. I don't remember all the details, but I know that later on that evening, Bernard and I ended up at a corner table on the veranda of the Olofsson Hotel. And we sat there for hours, just talking. And this was the time when I really began to get to know Bernard. Throughout those 20 years of working with Bernard, we passed through some dark times, such as that, harrowing times. We had to use a lot of caution in our work because we were out trying to change things at a time when they shouldn't have been changing. There were also good times, very good times. And in fact, I think the icing on the cake of that was 1986 with Haïti Libéré. And everyone in Bernard and his circle of friends and colleagues and associates were elated over the possibility of Haiti being changed. Throughout all these times, one consistent was Bernard's irreverent attitude. Bernard did not suffer fools gladly. He was opinionated, and he would let you know his opinions, and he'd stand by them. He did not tolerate nonsense, and I liked that about him because he was very upfront with you about that. So he also had a tremendous sense of humor. And of course, I think in some of those dark days, it's the humor that kind of gets you by and keeps you going. And if I could share one of his jokes with you, I think he would be happy about that. But it's a joke about the strong young peasant who rescues Haitian President for life, Jean-Claude Duvalier, from being stranded and marooned in his Jeep in the river. And the way the story was told to me was that the peasant grabbed Jean-Claude, pulled him onto the bank of the river, and revived him. And Jean-Claude looked at the peasant and said, "Thank you so much for saving my life. Do you know who I am?" And the peasant didn't. He said, "Well, I'm Jean-Claude Duvalier." And the peasant went, oh my God, you're Jean-Claude." And Jean-Claude said, "Yes, well, you can, as a reward, I'm indebted to you. You can have anything you want. I can give it to you, just anything you want. Just name it and you'll have it." And the peasant thought for a minute and he said, "Excellence, I would like to have a state funeral." Jean-Claude said, "A state funeral? You're a young, strapping, healthy man. I can give you money. I can give you cars. I can give you houses. I can give you travel. And you want a state funeral?" And the peasant looked at him and said, "Yes, Excellence, because when the people in the village know who I saved, they're going to kill me." So this was the kind of dark humor that Bernard and I would share and practice, and I got so many jokes from him. I could be here all day telling them, but I won't. And then there were some real jokes. I'm going to share one of them with you. Some of you real old-timers may remember that sometime around 1984, there was an incident in Port-au-Prince where a car with a bomb in it was found parked outside the palace. And of course anybody remember that? Anybody but me? Okay, good. I'm not the only one then. And of course, this sent the country into a tither. Well, not the country, but Jean-Claude, into a tither. This was a threat. So Jean-Claude dispatched his soldiers, and in those days, of course, traveling in Haiti, there were roadblocks all over the place, manned by soldiers, and you had to stop and go through the formalities. So he gave his soldiers, apparently, at the roadblocks, orders to check every vehicle for bombs going through the roadblocks. So Bernard and I happened to be traveling through Gracier, and there was a roadblock, and we stopped. And the soldier said to Bernard, "Can you open the hood, please?" And Bernard looked out the window, and he looked at the guy, and he said, "Are you a soldier, or are you a mechanic?" And the soldier was kind of taken back by it, and he laughed, and he just waved us through. Right through, no check for the bomb or anything like that. Rarely did I ever hear Bernard use his fluent German. He seemed, from my perspective, to use it mostly when he was exasperated about something. And these German phrases would come flowing out of his mouth, rapid, not knowing what the heck he was saying, and then he'd be over it, and he'd switch back to Creole or English. But there's one word that he used a lot, and especially when we were driving. And it's a word that I use myself a lot. Idiot. Idiot! Monsieur, c'est idiot. That was, I think, perhaps his most favorite German word. Bernard taught me a great deal of things, and not just about Haiti. If you believe it or not, Bernard taught me how to chew food. I don't know if any of you have ever shared a meal with Bernard, and I don't know if he did this all the way through his life, but certainly when we were eating together in Haiti, he would do it. Bernard was a very deliberate eater and a deliberate chewer. So when you were with Bernard, if you had any tendency to eat fast, you were in trouble. Because you spend half your time with an empty plate in front of you while he was deliberately enjoying his food. We would go often in those days after 1980 to a restaurant not far from his home. I can't remember the name of it, but it was a gingerbread house. It was on a corner, and I think it may have been called the Select. But we would go there, and Bernard tended to like to eat pintade. And he would pick at those little pintades and eat, and it would take forever. One thing he didn't like, however, was salad. And he would disparagingly say, "Why are you eating that rabbit food?" So, well, in '95, when Bernard went to work with INRA, and shortly after that, I left the Inter-American Foundation to begin a university career, we stopped working together actively in Haiti, but we didn't stop working together. At the university, I created something called the Haiti Program, which was an initiative to try to make sure the voices of Haiti's voiceless population were heard in Washington, D.C., among policymakers, politicians, diplomats, and so on. And I often called Bernard to Washington to participate in our meetings because I wanted Bernard's voice in particular to be heard by these people who were making these lofty decisions about Haiti and basically knew nothing about the place. And true to himself, Bernard was always there to represent the voiceless Haitians and give them voice in corridors and rooms and meetings where they had none. It was my pleasure to enable him to do that, both in Washington. We participated many times at the Haitian Studies Association annual conference in Boston and elsewhere. And one remarkable time, we went together to Mérida, Mexico, to participate in a conference. It never ceased to amaze me how people throughout the world wanted to know about Haiti, and that Bernard was the perfect choice to inform them. As Bernard and Elsie kind of transitioned back and forth to Miami, I became a fairly frequent visitor to 9337 Northwest Court, Miami Shores. My own mother was living in Pompano Beach, and surely every time I came to visit her, I always found my way to 9337 Northwest Court. I have the deepest appreciation of Bernard, deep appreciation of Bernard, having worked with him for 20 years. His sense of social and economic justice and how he used his skills, his knowledge, and his contacts toward improving conditions, especially in rural Haiti and among the rural peasantry of disadvantaged people in Haiti, trying to help to level the playing field, get them access to resources so they could do the work to improving their own lives. In this regard, I've reflected that perhaps Bernard and I shared a certain trait, I as an Irish American and he as a Haitian, that we were both kind of in favor of assisting the underdog. And that was, I think, a guiding star for Bernard, that he would put his skills, knowledge, and contacts to work to assist the underdogs. A closing story, which is not in Haiti, but actually from the island of Dominica, where I had been a Peace Corps volunteer, and at a certain point in time, Bernard and Elsie traveled to Dominica at my behest to see about establishing and doing some research for some exchange programs between Dominicans working at the grassroots and Haitians working at the grassroots. We actually came up with some very exciting programs in that regard. But the story I want to tell you is very emblematic of who Bernard is. Apparently, and Elsie, you may remember this, apparently Bernard and Elsie were being taken around by a man well known in Dominica, a prominent businessman and political advisor. And Bernard inadvertently closed the car door on his hand. Do you remember this, Elsie? Bam! And it must have hurt like hell. So right away, they got in the car, and the Dominican guy ferried Bernard and Elsie up to the Princess Margaret Hospital, the only hospital in Dominica. And the way Bernard told me the story, I wasn't there. The way Bernard told me the story was that they got into the emergency room, and they went up to the window and to explain the situation. And Bernard assumed that because he was with this gros chien of Dominica, a big dog, he assumed that they would just be ushered right in for treatment. Well, they went to the window, and the attendant at the window said, "Okay, fine, we'll look and see you. Now take a seat and wait your turn." And Bernard told me the story like it was for him a revelation from heaven, that it was just the way things should be. No Makut attitude of pushing ahead and getting preferred treatment. But like everybody else, every other living soul in that room, wait your turn and you'll be attended to. And I thought of the story and I wanted to share it with you because to me, it sums up who Bernard is for me. Someone seeking justice, seeking a level playing field, and putting himself at the disposal to reach that end. So thank you for allowing me to share these thoughts with you. I'm happy to be here with you to wish Bernard farewell and all the best to you all. Thank you.
Good morning. Thanks for being here. I'm Ralph, and I've known Bernard just about forever. I gotta adjust this. Is it good? All right. Bernard had a good life. Bernard had a good life because it was an honest and meaningful life. There are three major components to a human life: your family, your friends, and your profession, your work. Bernard's wife of 58 years, Elsie, and I'm going to tell a story here. When Pascal and I were talking about doing the picture presentation, Pascal told me that they couldn't find a single picture of Bernard that came before he married Elsie. And from that story, a kind of legend, a origin story was born, that Bernard wasn't born like us, he didn't grow up like us. He somewhat materialized out of thin air just for the pleasure of marrying Elsie. And that's a lovely story. That's how origin stories are born, and he was there fully grown and with Haitian memories, though he never grew up in Haiti apparently. Rumors also have it that, and I'm going to give no details about that one, that he was quite a pugilist. When he was upset, he could get into it, and it would require divine intervention to stop him. Now that story only will, and thank you, Jean, for that story. That story only resonates with the most pour les intimes, comme on dit en Haïti. But I digress. As I was saying, his wife, his two children, Bernard the younger, and where is Pascal? And Pascal, his grandchildren, we have a full table of them here. His brother, who's not here, brother-in-law and his wife, his nephews, and I'm missing someone, I apologize, are all testament to a family life well lived. The next part is his friends. My giving this eulogy today, your presence here today, are testament of deep and loyal friendships. I've known Bernard for roughly 45 years. My first memory of him is me sitting in my uniform in Bernard Jr.'s bedroom on a Friday afternoon skipping school. That was the thing. And Bernard walks over to the room And he made a remark to me, a remark that had some concern, but in my teenage angst was also full of sarcasm. And also in my teenage angst and stupidity, I responded with even more sarcasm, but I had the clever idea of using a speech that kind of like simulated San Antonio, and I don't know anybody read San Antonio here. Oh my God, read San Antonio over there? Okay. At the time, Bernard, Patrick, and we were just absolutely in love with San Antonio. He was very offbeat, let's say that to be polite. So I responded with sarcasm to him. And for a moment there, and I knew he had a temper. So for a moment there, he looked at me, and I'm not sure whether he's going to get angry or not. He looked at me, he shook his head, he turned around, and he said to me, "Je vois qu'on a de bonnes lectures." So I'm trying to translate that. I see that we read good books. And at that point, I thought he was like the coolest guy ever. First of all, he didn't get angry. And second, and most importantly, he got my San Antonio reference. And from that day, Bernard made my coolest dad list. And so that was the beginning of a friendship. I love the man. Bernard had deep and loyal friendships. A life well lived. However, his honest and meaningful life found its clearest expression in the professional choices that he made. The first one was that he chose to return to Haiti and work as a rural sociologist. As we speak, there are no Bernard Etheart building. There are no Bernard Etheart statues anywhere, squares, and there might never be. But these, from my position, are not true measures of a person's life. The measure of a person's life is in the moral choices that that person made, and in the lives that they have touched and made better. By that measure, Bernard had an honest life because he remained true to the values, to the principle that he had in an environment in Haiti where these qualities were mostly in short supply. Bernard had a meaningful life because he touched thousands upon thousands of Haitian lives and made them better. Beginning with, and I have to mention that, I said to myself, I will mention Coiffeur because he talks about it as his baby. Beginning with his project in Coiffeur, that's around Bel-Adair, beginning in 1976, through his directorship of the Institute for Agrarian Reform in Ara in 2013. 37 years of Haitian lives made better. Professionally, a life well lived. As we celebrate Bernard's life today, we must realize that a person's true death is the last time that someone say their name. It is when the last life that they have touched is extinguished. For Bernard, that will be a long time, an honest and meaningful life. As we mourn Bernard's death today, we must understand that we now hold the responsibility to make his death a meaningful one. Let us learn from him. For the impermanency of life, let us love each other a little bit more. Be kinder to each other. From his dedication to service, let us deliberately work at making the lives of the people around us just a little bit better. Bernard Etheart, an honest and meaningful life, a lasting and meaningful legacy. Thank you for being here today.
I'm happy to fill a role that they've asked. I'm going to look at the bulletin here. It says, Message of Hope. That's a good thing, something good to be charged with, to bring a message of hope. And that's what I hope to do today, and I'm very cognizant of this. I was telling Elsie just before the service that I asked her how long she was married to Bernard. 60 years, is that correct? Almost 60 years. So my grandfather, who was a minister and a teacher, he and my grandmother were married 75 years, and she died close to the time of that 75th anniversary. And I was giving some remarks at my grandmother's funeral, and I looked down at my grandfather. My grandfather had a way of saying really intelligent things in a very funny way. And I looked down and I saw that my grandfather was getting bored. This is at his wife of 75 years funeral. And he leaned over and he said something to my uncle. And a little bit later, I had to find out what my uncle said that my grandfather said. My grandfather said this. He said, funerals should be long in coming and short in duration. So I'm thinking about that at this point. I'm also remembering him giving me a message about how to preach. And he said this as well. He says, Matt, if you haven't struck oil in 20 minutes of drilling, quit boring. So I'm going to try to remember those two things. But I come with a message of hope. I've been given this honor to bring hope and words of encouragement in this difficult moment. In this difficult moment of loss, we need comfort and peace, and most of all, hope. From the time I heard the news of Bernard's passing, I've been praying for this comfort and peace to come to the family. Comfort and peace that only God can bring. You see, it's not usually with words or even deeds that we do that brings comfort. It's by presence. And God promised that he would bring his presence and be close to the brokenhearted. I am confident that in the moments that I don't know what to say, in the times I cannot control, those moments in life that are beyond control, God comes close. And he brings a peace that passes understanding. I pray this peace, the peace of God's presence upon you this morning. We have hope. In the movie Shawshank Redemption, Red says to his friend, Andy, hope is a dangerous thing. For the person who's held captive to failures and disappointments of either themselves or others, hope can seem like a dangerous thing. Elsie mentioned to me before, too, she said, unfortunately, the things that Bernard really wanted to see, the change that he wanted to see, have not come to fruition in Haiti. And I reminded her, yes, that's true in big situations. But without a doubt, Bernard affected change in people's lives. That's where change really happens. Organizations, situations, governments, even churches will fail. But God brings real lasting hope and change to people, regardless of the failures of others. We have a different hope than what commonly might be understood in this world. We have a living hope. The Apostle Peter wrote this, 1 Peter 1:3. He said, "Praise be to God and the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. In his great mercy, he has given us new birth into a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead." Jesus came to earth to bring eternal, practical hope and change to the people that God loved. When Jesus announced his ministry, he said, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me because he has anointed me to preach good news to the poor." Jesus came preaching this good news and preaching the love and goodness of God to every person. He spoke of the kingdom of God where people were loved by God and shared that love and mercy to others. I might add, equally to others. You would think that this hope would be readily accepted, that everyone would want to be a part of this type of kingdom, this kind of hope. But the self-seeking rulers of his day put Jesus to death. Now, it is easy to point out our fingers at others and grasp and get frustrated with their selfish power-seeking ways. But the truth is, all of us can be self-centered. A self-centered life is what the Bible refers to as sin. Sin happens when we put our focus and our attention on ourselves. And it tends to break down relationships on all levels. The Bible says that all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. The amazing grace that we sing of tells us of a God that loves us, even though we all have sinned. Jesus died to atone for the sins of everyone. Sin crucified Jesus, but Jesus crucified the sins of everyone when he gave up his life and died on a cross. When he told the Father, "Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done." The news gets even better. Our hope is not dead because Jesus died. On the third day, Jesus rose again. Jesus rose to live, and he is our living hope. Because he lives, we can face today and tomorrow. Because he is our hope. The Apostle Paul wrote to his young son in the Lord, Timothy. In 1 Timothy 4, he writes this, verse 9. "This is a trustworthy saying that deserves full acceptance, and for this we labor and strive, that we have put our hope in the living God, who is the Savior of all men, and especially to those that believe." I'd like you to consider this carefully, if you will. It deserves your full acceptance. You can put your trust in God. He never fails. Sometimes it might be hard to keep hope alive when people and institutions disappoint, and people and institutions will always disappoint. Sometimes the people who are supposed to represent Jesus even, they fail. And this can threaten a person's hope and trust. But I want you to notice what Paul says here. He says Jesus is a Savior to all and of all. In case you're wondering what the word all means, I did a Greek study in the original language of the New Testament, and the word means all, everyone, anyone. It means that Jesus' salvation is for anyone, including you and including me. But Paul doesn't just stop there saying that the salvation is there for everyone. He says, especially to those who believe. There's a special hope that comes to those who believe. I often encounter people who struggle to believe. Most of the time, this struggle can be traced back to the failure of someone else. How can I believe in a good God when people do evil, often in His name? This is a very difficult chasm for us to cross. But you know, honestly, I don't think that the problem is that a person doesn't believe in Jesus. I think the real struggle is trusting Jesus. I think that we all readily would say, you know what, I think this Jesus really lived. We want to have the hope that what He preached is life. It sounds right. When we look at so many other things and recognize that this Jesus, to believe in Him, means we must follow Him. And to follow Him means we might have to, like He said, not my will, but yours be done. We might have to give our lives and our will over to this Jesus. You know, frankly, I don't want to serve a God that I can figure out. If I was able to attest to all of the wonders and the magnificence of God, then I would be God. And I think that we would all agree, none of us want that. So I trust and I give my will over to a God that I know is good, but many times I cannot understand. So I think the struggle of trusting Jesus comes to the struggle of letting Him be the Lord. It's truly a power control. It's a power struggle. I've seen the people cross that chasm when they simply give up and put their trust in Jesus. And there comes a living hope in those people. Something changes, a peace that changes. And a lot of times their circumstances doesn't change, but their attitude and their heart and the peace of God that passes understanding comes into their life. Jesus is the Savior of all, especially to them that believe. Today, I invite you to put your trust in Jesus. Ask Him to be the Lord of your life. You will not be disappointed. When the inevitable day comes, and it will come for each of us, the inevitable day when we cross from this world into the next. I want everybody to know, everybody that knows me and cares about me, I want them to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that Matt put his faith in Jesus, that he believed and he trusted. I don't want there to be any question of where my hope was. Would you like to be sure today? Would you like to be sure of the hope, especially them that believe? Sometimes people have faith, but I wonder if they ever make it official and make it known to others. Can I encourage you to make it official today? Would you pray with me this prayer that has become known as the sinner's prayer? If you would like to, I would encourage you to repeat after me as we pray this prayer. Jesus, I come to you today. I ask you to forgive me of my sins. I confess I've tried to do things my own way. I have sinned. Today I turn my life to you, and I receive you as my Savior, and I ask you to be my Lord. Come into my life, Jesus. Amen. You know, if you prayed that prayer and meant it, then God will take you at your word. And Jesus will come into your life and begin to change your life. I'm thinking of a story of my best friend growing up. Well, I don't know if we were best friends. We were kind of rivals. We were both drummers, and my friend, his name is Velvy. Yes, I know it's an unusual name. I've only heard it once. But I began to pray for Velvy to know Jesus. He came up in a real tough situation, and he was basically abandoned by both his mom and dad. And I began to pray for him every day that he would come to faith in Jesus. He began to live at a house that was sponsored by our church, and some people there began to really care for him. And this one person, whose name is Mike DePoe, began to ask Velvy over and over again. Now keep in mind, I've been praying for Velvy every day for most of our high school life. And now he's in this house with a guy by the name of Mike DePoe that just keeps asking him, hey, do you know Jesus? Do you want to give Jesus your life? Velvy told me finally, he said, okay, I'll say the prayer, just to get Mike to leave him alone. So he said the prayer. And he goes, Matt, you know what? The next day, and the days following, something really began to change in my life. He goes, I don't know how much I believed. I just wanted to get Mike to leave me alone. But God took me at his word. And he brought hope into my life and changed my life. And you know, well, that was back in 1983. Velvy still follows Jesus these days. And he always thanks me for not giving up on him and praying for him, and for putting him in near a guy that wouldn't quit bugging him until he said, maybe I'll give Jesus a try. That is a hope that does not disappoint. At this point, I'd like to open the time for, first of all, Pascal to come up and share some thoughts. And she's going to be followed by Bernard.
My dad was bigger than life. He was loud. He was incredibly smart, sometimes rude, but very loyal. He loved Haiti. He loved nature, and he loved us. He never told me he loved me, but I knew it more than anything. I knew it in the way he protected us. I knew it in the way he wanted to keep us all to himself. And I knew it in the way he was devoted to us. When I was 22 years old, I moved to upstate New York to start a new life and a new relationship. 18 months later, when things didn't work out, I started calling home frequently, feeling lonely, disappointed, and lost. That winter, I found myself in frigid temperatures in a town with few friends and no relatives. At some point, my dad told me he was coming. Within a few days, he was with me in Rochester, New York, trying to stay busy during the day by sightseeing while I worked as a reporter at the local newspaper. One day after work, he told me that he bought a pair of hiking boots because he got tired of feeling cold while walking in the snow. I was very surprised because he didn't like closed-toed shoes, let alone boots. He was more of a sandals kind of guy. A few days later, I was able to get some time off and we traveled back to South Florida. Each time I saw those boots, I smiled, thinking how out of character they were for him. Just for fun, he tried them on, and we noticed that they didn't fit. It turns out that he was so cold when he bought them in Rochester, his feet had shrunk. And he bought them 2 sizes too small. Now that he was back in South Florida in the heat, his feet were back to normal, and he couldn't get them on. Picturing my dad in Rochester, in the cold, trying to get through the day as he waited for me to get off work is a memory I will never forget. That was one way he showed me he loved me. When my kids were born, my dad refused to hold them for the first few days after we brought them home from the hospital. It was as if he feared he might break them. My parents became grandparents later in life, and to my surprise, my dad treated Thomas and Bethany completely differently than he treated Bernard and I when we were little. He never lost his temper. He was very patient. He seemed generally mesmerized by their smallest accomplishments. I think he viewed being a grandpa as a special treat, that he didn't want anything to negatively impact the experience. Many people would agree that I am my father's daughter. It's true that we had many things in common. First, I look like him. Also, we both have a short fuse. We both have pretty stubborn temperament. We both lack diplomacy in certain social situations. We also like a lot of the same things, such as scented candles, fresh flowers, and office supplies. I learned my sense of right and wrong from my father. Even though he grew up in a privileged family in Haiti, he always noticed those who had less. He was adamant about making a difference for the less fortunate, focusing on more than just yourself, and fighting injustice whenever possible. He was an incredible role model to me and Bernard, and I can only hope that I can guide my children the same way he guided me throughout my life. See you on the other side, Papa. Save me a glass of Haitian cocktail.
The problem with speaking after all those incredible speakers is that there isn't much else to say. So I'll just close by saying how much I appreciate all of you being there. Some of you I haven't seen in a really long time, and it's really great to see you. Thank you.
Thanks, Bernard and Pascal, for the enlightening and passionate eulogy for your father. As you recounted life with him, we heard some heartwarming thoughts about him today. Some we forgot and others we did not, and more so that we remembered vividly. May you and your family find comfort in the Lord, in each other, and in friends. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Emmanuel Alexis Schultz. I am Bernard Jr.'s sister-in-law, and I might say his favorite one. I want to also express the condolences of the Alexis family here in Miami and in Freiburg, Germany, the Giraud family in the Dominican Republic, the Schultz in Cologne, Germany, and the Gael also in Freiburg, Germany. They want you to know, the Etheart family, that they are with you with their prayers and during this difficult time. We are honored today to have a representative of Miami-Dade County, Commissioner Marlène Bastien, present a sympathy resolution to the Etheart family. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Jean Macnick Deriska. Please help me welcome Mr. Derisma.
Thank you, Dr. Alexis.
Thank you so much. At this time, we'd like to call Elsie and the Etheart family to the podium to accept this sympathy resolution.
Good afternoon. Bonsoir. What a wonderful celebration today. We have heard about the life of Etheart, and we all know now, if we didn't, how such a wonderful man he was. My name is Macnick Deriska. I'm the BCC District 2 Director with Commissioner Madeleine Bastien, Miami-Dade County Board of County Commissioners. I'm representing the office of Commissioner Madeleine Bastien today. She's asking me to be present and to present her deepest condolences to her friend Elsie Etheart, spouse of the deceased, to Etheart Jr. and spouse and kids, and to Pascal Tadeo, spouse and kids, and to the entire family. I'm gonna read the sympathy resolution from Miami-Dade County Commissioner, Board of County Commissioners, and for sure from Commissioner Madeleine Bastien, who had a great admiration for Etheart. Resolution. Miami-Dade County Office of the Mayor and Board of County Commissioners, whereas Miami-Dade County notes with profound sorrow the passing of Etheart, one of this community's most beloved residents, and whereas born in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, on June 4, 1937, as the firstborn child of Emmanuel Etheart and Alice Mentue, went to grade school in Haiti before graduating and studying pharmacy, and whereas Mr. Etheart worked diligently in his field of sociology from Haiti to Germany and other places and became an expert whose teachings and published articles allowed him to consult for the Inter-American Foundation, become the director of the Coiffure Project for SHADEV, and in 1995, the first director of the Institute for Agrarian Reform under President Harris's administration. And whereas Mr. Etheart's resume was vast and meaningful, therefore, when he came to Miami in 2019, after rising insecurity issues in his native country of Haiti, he continued to strive to share his experience and wisdom with others. And whereas this community mourns his passing, celebrates the life, and will forever treasure the memory of Etheart, who will be sorely missed by his family and all those he befriended. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Daniela Levin-Cava, Mayor of Miami-Dade County, Chairman Oliver Gilbert III, and the members of the Board of County Commissioners, on behalf of Miami-Dade County and this community, do hereby express upon the passing of Etheart our heartfelt sympathy and condolences to his loving family and friends, declaring that his lasting contribution will forever hold a special place in the lives of those whose paths he crossed. Madeleine Bastien, Commissioner, District 2, Oliver Gilbert III, Chairman, Daniela Levin-Cava, Mayor, January 27, 2024.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Jean McNeil Deriska. Our sincere thanks to Commissioner District 2, Madame Marlène Bastien, an authentic leader, a leader who is passionate to serve and with the courage to act. Please convey once more our sincere thanks to our wonderful commissioner. Thank you for being here on a Saturday morning. And now let's take a moment to reflect on the memories we share with Bernard Sr. Just a moment, and take comfort in knowing that he's now in a better place and he's at peace. Just a moment. Thank you very much. And now, before we proceed to the repast, on behalf of the Etheart family, I'd like to thank Pastor Larson for his hospitality. I would also like to thank the members of this church for their cooperation and support to Pascal and her family during this difficult time. Can we please give Pastor Larson and the church an appreciation round of applause? Thank you. Merci beaucoup, comme on dirait, si vous parliez français. Merci, merci, merci. Ah mais vraiment, merci en pile. May God continue to shower you, Pastor, and every member of this church with abundant blessings. And now, after sharing stories and memories of Bernard Sr., it is time to join the family for refreshments, light refreshments and hors d'oeuvres. We kindly ask that you remain seated until your table is called to the buffet. This is to ensure that you enjoy the meal in an orderly and timely fashion. We thank you for your cooperation. Now we'll be calling the Etheart family. We would love to invite them to the buffet table. We need to also thank our ushers who will soon call you to your respective time to the buffet table. I'd like to thank, first of all, Arnaud. Arnaud, thank you. Please stand up. You've been wonderful. You are a very good friend of the family. And you helped us carry chairs to for the guests. We'd like to also thank good friends of the family, Christine Saint-Ville, and also Marie-Paul Duvivier Saint-Ville. And those two wonderful ladies would usher you quietly when it's time for you to release yourself to the table. Thank you so much. At this point, please, the Etheart family, find your way to the buffet table. Enjoy your meal, and I'll see you back soon. Thank you. And at this point, while we're saying, you have a card in front of you. On this card, you'll see a scan. And this scan will allow you to contribute to the projects very dear to Bernard Etheart Sr. Feel free to share it with your friends, with your neighbors, with your co-workers and family. That's a sure way to uphold his legacy. Thank you so much. And in case you're wondering, all the musics that you've been listening thus far, they are all Bernard Sr.'s favorite. As you're listening to them, you're making your way through the buffet table. Think about him. Think about his legacy. Think about all the things that you've heard today. Nous voulions remercier vous tous qui êtes ici aujourd'hui, mesdames et messieurs. Ça, vraiment, va très bien et droit au cœur de la famille Etheart. Nous vous remercions une fois de plus de votre présence ici aujourd'hui. Bon appétit. Borderline requesting that you remain seated until your table is called. At this point, we are serving the first table, the family, the Etheart's family. Please remain seated until you're called to the buffet table. Thank you.